the quiet of the night, when the world slows and the rain taps softly against your window, some stories refuse to fade. They linger in the shadows, whispered in the corners of forgotten towns and restless cities. Welcome to Shadows of the Past, where we unravel the chilling truths behind crimes that haunt the human soul. Tonight, in Volume 43, we dive into 11 cases, each a descent into darkness, each a reminder that evil can wear the most ordinary face. From a reclusive loner in a sleepy English town to a cyber syndicate shaking the foundations of global finance, these are stories of betrayal, obsession, and the relentless pursuit of justice. As the rain falls and the world grows still, let these tales pull you into their grip. Settle in, dim the lights, and let the black screen carry you away. But be warned, once you step into these shadows, there's no turning back. What horrors hide behind the faces we trust? Let's find out. Starting with a case that shattered the peace of Wakefield, England. Case 1, the Predator of Wakefield. The rain falls heavier now, a steady rhythm cloaking the quiet town of Wakefield, England in a veil of unease. It's 2011, and this small community, nestled among old brick houses and quaint local shops, is the kind of place where neighbors nod politely and doors are left unlocked. But beneath this serene surface, a darkness festers, one that will soon tear this town apart. At the heart of this story is Richard Halewood, a man who seemed as unremarkable as the streets he walked. 43 years old, a former truck driver, sidelined by injury, he was a solitary figure blending into the backdrop of Wakefield's daily life. To those who passed his modest home, he was just another face, quiet, unassuming, the kind of man you'd forget moments after meeting. But some faces hide secrets too vile to imagine, and Richard Halewood's was one of them. Halewood's life hadn't always been so isolated. For nearly 2 decades, he'd driven trucks across the country, a job that suited his restless nature. But a back injury forced him into early retirement, leaving him with too much time and too little purpose. He withdrew, spending his days behind closed curtains or taking long solitary drives to the outskirts of town. Neighbors noticed his absence from their small talk, but no one thought much of it. After all, some people just prefer their own company. But they didn't know, what no one could have suspected, was that Halewood's quiet exterior masked a mind consumed by something far darker. Decades earlier, Halewood had dipped his toes into petty crime, a stolen car here, a forged check there, even an alleged harassment case that fizzled out for lack of evidence. He was clever, always slipping through the cracks of the law, never drawing enough attention to land in serious trouble. But those minor infractions were just the surface. Deep within, a compulsion was growing, one that would erupt in the spring of 2011, forever staining Wakefield's history. Her name was Eleanor Brooks, a 14-year-old girl with a bright smile and a life full of promise. Eleanor was the kind of teenager who lit up a room, popular, kind, always juggling school, friends, and extracurriculars. Her routine was predictable. School in the morning, activities in the afternoon, home by evening. Her parents, loving but not overbearing, trusted her to navigate the safe streets of Wakefield. But on one fateful evening, that trust would be shattered. Eleanor didn't come home. The rain was light that night, barely a drizzle, as Eleanor's parents waited. 6 o'clock came and went, then 7. Her phone, usually buzzing with texts, went straight to voicemail. Concern turned to panic. They called her friends, drove her usual routes, but there was no sign of her. By midnight, they were at the police station, their voices trembling as they filed a missing persons report. At first, the authorities considered the possibility of a runaway. Eleanor was a teenager after all. Maybe she'd had a fight with a friend or slipped off for an adventure, but her parents knew better. Eleanor wasn't the type to vanish without a word. Something was wrong. Days passed and the investigation intensified. Wakefield, unused to such mysteries, buzzed with worry. Flyers with Eleanor's face appeared on every lamppost, her brown eyes staring out from grainy photos. Volunteers scoured parks and alleys while the police chased every lead, no matter how small. Then, a breakthrough. A petrol station surveillance camera had captured something chilling. A grainy image of Eleanor walking near a rusty blue van. The vehicle, old and unremarkable, was registered to none other than Richard Halewood. The name didn't immediately raise alarms. Halewood was a nobody, a man who barely registered in the town's consciousness, but when police brought him in for questioning, his calm demeanor set off warning bells. He sat across from detectives, his voice steady, claiming he'd been home all evening. The van, Stolen, he said, though he couldn't explain why he hadn't reported it. His alibi was flimsy, a house of cards waiting to collapse. Suspicion grew, and a search warrant was issued. What they found inside Halewood's home was the stuff of nightmares. From the outside, his house was as ordinary as any in Wakefield. A neatly trimmed garden, faded curtains, nothing to suggest the horror within. But stepping through the door was like crossing into another world. The air was thick with neglect. The rooms cluttered with old newspapers, discarded wrappers, and a strange collection of locks and chains. Every step deepened the unease. Then they found the basement door, heavily reinforced, out of place in a home so mundane. Behind it, a small, soundproofed room, barely larger than a closet, and there, curled in the corner, was... She was alive, thank God, but the terror in her eyes told a story words could never capture. 5 days she'd been there. Hands bound, trapped in a space so small she could barely move. Her face was pale, her body trembling, but she was unharmed. Physically, at least. The psychological wounds, though, would linger for years. As officers carried her to safety, the reality of what they'd uncovered settled over them like a fog. Richard Halewood wasn't just a loner, he was a predator. Halewood was arrested on the spot, his protest falling on deaf ears. He insisted he was keeping her safe, a claim so delusional it only deepened the horror. In the interrogation room, he was a study in contrasts, at times detached, staring blankly at the walls, at others almost smug, as if he believed he could outsmart the system. But the evidence was overwhelming. His computer revealed a chilling obsession, weeks of searches about Eleanor's routines, articles on past kidnappings, and tips for avoiding detection. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment act. It was planned, calculated, every detail meticulously arranged. As the case unfolded, Wakefield reeled. How could this happen here, in a town where everyone knew everyone? Neighbors who'd nodded to Halewood now questioned every interaction. Had they missed something? Could they have seen the signs? The police dug deeper, and what they found only tightened the knot in the town's collective stomach. Hidden among the clutter of Halewood's home were notebooks, hundreds of pages filled with scribbled observations, times, locations, names. Girls as young as 12, some Eleanor's age. Their routines documented with terrifying precision. Some names were crossed out, their fates unclear. Had they been discarded as targets? Or had something worse happened? Then came the tapes. A locked drawer in Halewood's bedroom held a collection of dusty VHS tapes, untouched for years. What they contained turned even seasoned investigators pale. Grainy footage of Halewood himself mumbling to a camera, speaking of his purpose, his vision. In one tape, he mentioned Eleanor by name, months before her abduction. He spoke of rescuing certain girls from a corrupt world, his voice low and deliberate, pausing as if lost in thought. It was the voice of a man whose mind had long since slipped into darkness. A man who saw himself not as a monster, but as a savior. Eleanor's rescue was a miracle, but the investigation took a darker turn. Police uncovered records of Halewood's movements over the past decade. Frequent trips to rural areas, stays in motels, purchases of chains, locks, and heavy-duty plastic sheets. The implications were sickening. Was Eleanor his only victim? One name kept surfacing. Hannah Weller, a 16-year-old who'd vanished from a nearby town 7 years earlier. Her case had gone cold, dismissed as a runaway. But Halewood's notebooks mentioned her school route, her face sketched in eerie detail. Unlike Eleanor's, her name wasn't crossed out. A lead sent police to an abandoned farmhouse on Wakefield's outskirts, a place Halewood had no reason to visit. In its basement, behind a decaying door, they found a room eerily similar to the one where Eleanor was held. Blankets lined the walls, the air stale and heavy, and there, buried under dust, was a silver necklace, a crescent moon pendant, a gift to Hannah for her 15th birthday. Her parents confirmed it immediately. The discovery reignited hope, but after years of searching, no trace of Hannah was found. Had Halewood planned his cover-up as carefully as his crimes? The trial was swift but harrowing. Eleanor, with a courage that belied her age, took the stand. Her voice trembled as she described the darkness, the silence, the way Halewood spoke to her as if they shared some twisted bond. The courtroom was silent, her words a weight that crushed any lingering doubt. Halewood's defense was feeble. His claims of protection laughed out of court. The jury convicted him in hours, sentencing him to life without parole. Wakefield exhaled, but the relief was bittersweet. For Eleanor, survival was only the beginning. The nightmares came relentlessly, flashes of that room, the sound of locks clicking shut. She moved away, changed her name, and fought to rebuild. Therapy helped, but the scars remained, a constant reminder of how close she'd come to a fate like Hannah's. Wakefield, too, bore scars. The town's innocence was gone, replaced by a lingering unease. Halewood's house was boarded up, avoided like a plague. His name became a whisper, a warning. But the deepest wound was Hannah Weller's mystery. Years later, a fire at the farmhouse uncovered a hidden root cellar. Beneath layers of earth, skeletal remains were found. Hannah's, confirmed by DNA. Halewood, now old and frail in prison, offered only a cryptic smile. You had to burn the past to see the truth. No remorse, no answers. Hannah's parents, after a decade of hope, were left with grief and closure in equal measure. As the rain softens outside, Wakefield's story lingers. Richard Halewood was no mastermind, no criminal genius. Just a man who hid in plain sight, his darkness festering behind a forgettable face. How many others, like him, walk among us, unnoticed? How many secrets lie buried in the quiet corners of ordinary towns? Eleanor survived, Hannah did not, but both remind us of a chilling truth. Evil doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it's the neighbor you barely know, the nod you barely notice. And sometimes it's waiting just beyond the rain. Case 2, the hidden room in Houston. The rain falls harder now, a relentless drumbeat against the sprawling suburbs of Houston, Texas. It's 2011, this city hums with life. Oil rigs churning, freeways buzzing, neighborhoods stretching into the horizon. In one such neighborhood, a quiet street lined with manicured lawns and family homes, a darkness takes root. It's not the kind that screams for attention, not a shadow that leaps from alleyways. No! This darkness is patient, methodical, hidden behind a face so ordinary it could belong to anyone. His name is Dwayne Callister, a 47-year-old mechanic whose life to the outside world is as unremarkable as the tools he wields. But beneath his grease-stained coveralls and polite nods, something sinister stirs, a compulsion that will soon shatter a family and haunt Houston forever. Dwayne was a fixture in his community, the kind of man you'd see tinkering in his garage or chatting about the weather at the local gas station. He lived in the same modest house for years, a single story with a sagging porch and a pickup truck parked out front. Neighbors knew him as reliable, a guy who'd fix your car for a fair price and never overstay his welcome. He wasn't flashy, didn't draw attention. Divorced, no kids, he kept to himself, his evenings spent alone with a beer and the hum of late-night TV. But solitude can be a breeding ground for obsession, and Dwayne's quiet life was a mask for something far uglier. Years ago, Dwayne had been different. A husband, a dreamer, someone with plans beyond spark plugs and oil changes. But his marriage crumbled under the weight of his temper and a drinking habit he never quite shook. The divorce left him adrift, his days bleeding into one another. He found solace in routine, work, home, repeat. But routine wasn't enough. Something darker took hold, a need he couldn't name, one that grew with every passing year. By 2011, it wasn't just a thought, it was a plan. Her name was Emily Prescott, a 14-year-old with a laugh that could brighten the gloomiest Houston afternoon. Emily was a freshman, navigating the chaos of high school with a mix of excitement and nerves. She loved soccer, her friends, the little rituals of teenage life, late-night texts, weekend mall trips, dreams of a future beyond the suburbs. Her parents, Mark and Laura, were protective but not stifling, trusting Emily's good judgment in their safe, middle-class neighborhood. She walked home from practice most days, her route cutting through familiar streets, past houses she'd known her whole life. It was a routine so predictable it became invisible. And that's exactly what Dwayne Callister was counting on. Dwayne had noticed Emily months earlier. Maybe it was her energy, her unguarded smile, or the way she seemed to belong to a world he'd long since lost. He'd see her pass by his house, backpack slung over one shoulder, earbuds in, lost in her own thoughts. At first, he told himself it was harmless, a glance, nothing more. But glances became stares, stares became fixation. He started timing his evenings to coincide with her walks, watching from his porch or his truck, always careful to seem preoccupied. He was good at blending in, a skill honed by years of fading into the background. But inside, his mind was racing, plotting, building something monstrous. The evening it happened, the rain was light, barely enough to dampen the pavement, Emily left soccer practice a little late, the sky bruising purple as dusk settled in. She texted her mom she was on her way, her phone glowing as she turned onto her usual route. She didn't notice the pickup truck idling a block away. Didn't see the man behind the wheel, his hands steady, but his heart pounding. Dwayne had prepared for this moment. He'd spent weeks studying her habits, mapping her path, ensuring no one would see. When Emily passed a quiet stretch of road, he acted. It was quick, clinical, a rag pressed to her face, a struggle so brief it barely disturbed the evening. By the time her phone hit the ground, she was in his truck, and Dwayne Callister was driving into the night. Emily's absence was felt immediately. Her parents, used to her punctuality, grew uneasy when 6:30 came and went. Her phone went unanswered, her texts unread. By 7 o'clock, they were calling her friends, her coach, anyone who might know where she was. By 8 o'clock, they were in their car, retracing her route, hearts sinking with every empty street. A neighbor mentioned seeing a pickup truck earlier, but it was too vague, too fleeting. By midnight, the Prescotts were at the police station, their voices cracking as they begged for help. Houston PD sprang into action, but the first hours were agonizingly slow. Was it a runaway? A prank? The possibilities swirled, but Emily's parents knew the truth in their bones. Their daughter was in danger. The city rallied, flyers went up, news stations broadcast Emily's photo, her hazel eyes pleading from every screen. Volunteers combed parks and vacant lots while detectives chased leads that led nowhere. Days bled into one another, each sunrise a reminder of Emily's absence. Then, a glimmer of hope. A gas station clerk, a man with a knack for noticing details, came forward. He'd seen a pickup truck the night Emily vanished, parked oddly near the edge of town. The driver, he said, was a mechanic maybe, always paying cash. He didn't know the man's name, but he described the truck. Faded blue, a dented fender, a sticker on the back window. It was enough. But police cross-referenced the description with DMV records, landing on Dwayne Callister. His name didn't scream suspect. No criminal record, no red flags, just a mechanic who kept to himself. But something about his address, blocks from Emily's route, nagged at detectives. They brought him in, expecting a routine interview. Dwayne was calm, almost too calm, his answers rehearsed. He'd been home, he said, watching TV, no idea about any girl. The truck? Parked in his driveway all night, but his eyes betrayed him, darting to the door, lingering too long on the table. Detectives pressed harder, and Dwayne's story began to crack. A search warrant changed everything. Dwayne's house was unassuming, the kind you drive past without a second glance. Inside, it was a shrine to obsession. Stacks of car magazines, empty beer cans, and a faint smell of motor oil greeted officers, but it was the garage that stopped them cold. A trapdoor cleverly hidden beneath a workbench led to a basement no one knew existed. The space was small, soundproofed, a concrete box with a single bulb swinging overhead, and there, chained to a pipe, was Emily Prescott. She was alive, her face gaunt, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and relief. 6 days she'd been there, fed scraps, given just enough water to survive. The room was a prison, every detail designed to keep her hidden. Soundproof foam, a heavy lock, no windows. Officers freed her, their hands shaking as they carried her to an ambulance. Emily clung to them, whispering, "He said he'd never let me go." Upstairs, Dwayne sat in cuffs, his face blank, as if the world had stopped turning. The investigation peeled back layers of horror. Dwayne's basement wasn't a hasty creation. It had been built with care. The walls reinforced, the soundproofing professional grade. He'd spent months, maybe years, preparing. His computer revealed searches for how to soundproof a room, chloroform recipes, and, chillingly, Emily's name. He'd tracked her for weeks, learning her schedule, waiting for the perfect moment. But the most disturbing find was a journal, pages filled with ramblings about saving Emily, about a life where they'd be together. It was the work of a mind unmoored, a man who saw his crime as destiny. Houston was stunned. Dwayne Callister, the quiet mechanic, was a monster. Neighbors who'd borrowed his tools or waved at him in passing now questioned everything. How had he gone unnoticed? The police dug into his past, searching for clues. His ex-wife, long estranged, described a man prone to fixation, someone who'd once followed her for weeks after their split. There were no prior victims, at least none they could prove. But Dwayne's meticulous planning suggested been building to this for years. Emily's rescue was a miracle, but the aftermath was brutal. She couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, haunted by the sound of chains and the memory of Dwayne's voice, calm, almost tender, as he spoke of their future. Therapy became her lifeline, but the trauma was a shadow she'd carry forever. Her parents, racked with guilt, moved the family away, hoping a new city could offer a fresh start. Emily, though broken, refused to be defined by her ordeal. Years later, she channeled her pain into advocacy, speaking for survivors, her voice a beacon in the darkness. The trial was a formality. Dwayne offered no defense, no explanation, only silence. The journal, the basement, the evidence was undeniable. Emily's testimony, delivered through tears, sealed his fate. She described the cold, the fear, the way he'd sit and watch her, saying nothing. The jury deliberated for less than an hour, convicting him of kidnapping and related charges. The judge, visibly shaken, sentenced him to life without parole. Dwayne didn't react, his eyes fixed on some distant point, as if he'd already retreated into his own twisted world. Houston tried to move on, but the case left a scar. Dwayne's house was torn down, the lot left empty, a silent monument to the town's lost innocence. Rumors swirled. Had he planned to take others? Were there secrets buried in that basement? Police found no other victims, but the journal hinted at names, places, possibilities that kept investigators awake at night. Dwayne, locked away, offered nothing. His silence as chilling as his crime. As the rain slows to a whisper, Emily's story lingers like a ghost. Dwayne Callister wasn't a master criminal, wasn't a name that echoed in headlines. He was just a man, one among millions, who hid his darkness behind a handshake and a smile. How many others like him are out there, watching, waiting? Emily survived, her strength a testament to the human spirit. But in the quiet of Houston suburbs, where the rain falls and the lights dim, the question remains, what else hides in the houses we pass every day? What secrets lie just beneath the surface, waiting for the perfect moment to strike? Case 3, the Barn of Enid. The rain taps softly now, a mournful rhythm over the plains of Enid, Oklahoma. It's 2009, and this small town, cradled by fields of wheat and endless sky, feels like a place time forgot. Here, life moves slow. Farmers wave from porches, diners hum with gossip, and the horizon stretches unbroken. But even in a town where everyone knows your name, darkness can take root, silent and unseen. In Enid, that darkness wore the face of Daniel Whitaker, a 42-year-old mechanic whose quiet demeanor hid a mind twisted by obsession. Known to most as Danny, he was a man you'd pass without a second glance, his life a patchwork of routine and solitude. But beneath the surface, Danny was building something horrific, and one girl's disappearance would unravel a nightmare that Enid would never forget. Danny Whitaker was a local. Born and raised in Enid's dusty embrace, he'd grown up fixing tractors, his hands stained with grease before he was old enough to drive. To those who knew him, he was dependable, if a bit withdrawn. A man who'd nod politely but rarely linger for small talk. His life hadn't been easy. A troubled childhood marked by a father who drank and a mother who left scars he never spoke of. By 40s, Danny was a loner, living in a run-down house on the edge of town, his days split between the auto shop and late nights at the bar. He'd had brushes with the law, petty theft, a bar fight, nothing serious. But Enid forgave its own, and Danny's sins were shrugged off as the quirks of a hard-luck life. But something in Danny had shifted. Maybe it was the years of isolation, the weight of a life that never quite took shape. Maybe it was the voices only he could hear, whispering needs he couldn't ignore. By 2009, those whispers had become a plan, meticulous and cold. He'd been watching, waiting, his eyes settling on someone who embodied everything he'd lost: youth, hope, a future. Her name was Sarah Monroe, and she was about to become the center of his twisted world. Sarah was 14, a bright spark in Enid's quiet rhythm. With her quick wit and easy smile, she was a favorite at school, always juggling softball practice, study groups, and dreams of college. Her parents, Tom and Ellen, were pillars of the community. Tom a farmer, Ellen a teacher. They raised Sarah to be independent but cautious, trusting Enid's small-town safety. She'd bike to school, cut through fields to meet friends, her life a predictable loop of teenage joy. But predictability is a predator's ally, and Danny Whitaker had been studying Sarah's every move. Benny's fixation began months earlier. Subtle at first. He'd see Sarah at the diner, laughing with friends or biking past his shop, her ponytail bouncing. To him, she wasn't just a girl. She was a symbol, a chance to reclaim something he'd never had. He started lingering near her routes, always with an excuse, a smoke break, a walk to clear his head. He was careful, blending into Enid's backdrop, a man so ordinary no one noticed his gaze. But inside, his obsession grew, fed by late-night fantasies and a journal where he poured his thoughts. He wrote of protecting Sarah, of a life where she'd understand him. It was a delusion, but to Danny, it was destiny. The night it happened, the rain was a faint drizzle, the air thick with summer's end. Sarah had stayed late at school, helping with a fundraiser. She texted her mom she'd be home by 7:00, then hopped on her bike, pedaling through familiar streets. Danny was ready. He'd spent weeks preparing, choosing a spot where the road dipped behind a grain silo out of sight. His truck was parked nearby, tools and a tarp in the back. When Sarah passed, he moved fast. A hand over her mouth, a struggle muffled by the wind. Her bike hit the dirt, and within moments she was gone, the truck vanishing into the dusk. Sarah's absence hit Enid like a thunderclap. Her parents, expecting her for dinner, grew anxious when 7:30 passed. Her phone was off, her bike nowhere to be found. By 8:00, they were calling neighbors, driving her routes, their panic rising. A farmer found the bike later that night, half hidden in a ditch, its front wheel bent. The sight turned worry into dread. Police descended, setting up a command post in the high school gym. Enid, unaccustomed to such fear, rallied. Volunteers searched fields, churches held vigils, and Sarah's face stared from every storefront. But the trail was cold, the rain washing away any clues. Days dragged on, each one heavier than the last. The police chased theories, a runaway, a boyfriend, a drifter passing through, but Sarah's life didn't fit those stories. She was happy, grounded, not the type to vanish. Detectives interviewed classmates, teachers, anyone who'd seen her, but the leads fizzled out. Enid's hope began to fray, replaced by a creeping certainty that something terrible had happened. Then, a break came from an unlikely source. A waitress at the town's lone diner, a woman with a sharp memory, overheard something odd. She'd been working the night Sarah disappeared, serving coffee to regulars, when she heard faint cries from the fields beyond the parking lot. She hadn't thought much of it, coyotes maybe, but now, with Sarah gone, it gnawed at her. She told police about an old barn nearby, abandoned for years, a place kids avoided. It was a long shot, but it was something. The barn sat on the outskirts, its wood weathered to gray, its roof sagging under neglect. Police approached at dawn, the rain a soft curtain as they fanned out. The air was heavy, the silence broken only by their boots crunching gravel. Inside, the barn was a maze of decay. Rusted tools, rotting hay, shadows that seemed to move. Then, in the back, behind a stack of crates, they found her. Sarah, bound and gagged, her eyes wide with terror. She was alive, her body bruised but unbroken, 4 days after she'd vanished. Officers cut her free, their voices soft as they carried her to safety. Sarah clung to them, sobbing, her words a jumble of fear and relief. Enid exhaled, but the horror was just beginning. The barn wasn't a random choice. It belonged to Danny Whitaker's family. Long abandoned, but still in his name. Police hadn't connected him to Sarah's case. His name hadn't surfaced. His life too quiet to raise suspicion. But the waitress's tip led them to his truck, seen near the barn the night of the abduction. When they brought Danny in, he was calm, almost bored, claiming he'd been at home, fixing a carburetor. His alibi was thin, his demeanor off. A search warrant followed, and what they found turned Enid's stomach. Danny's house was a shrine to his sickness. The living room was cluttered, empty bottles, car parts, a TV stuck on static. But in his bedroom, hidden behind a false panel, was a locked box. Inside were newspaper clippings about Sarah, school events, softball games, her name circled in red. A notebook detailed her routines, her friends, even her favorite coffee shop order. He'd been stalking her for months. His obsession laid bare in obsessive scrawl. Worse still were the photos. Grainy shots of Sarah, taken from a distance, some through her bedroom window. Enid's safe streets suddenly felt like a hunting ground. The barn yielded more. Police found chains, duct tape, a sleeping bag, tools of a predator. A locked trunk held VHS tapes, their labels faded. The footage was chilling. Danny, speaking to a camera describing his mission to save certain girls. Sarah's name appeared, but so did others, girls from Enid and nearby towns, some missing, some not. The tapes were old, some dated years back, raising a sickening question. Was Sarah his first? A USB drive, tucked in the same trunk, held newer files, blurry images of girls walking, unaware they were being watched. The scope of Danny's fixation was staggering, a network of potential victims spanning years. Danny's arrest shocked Enid. The mechanic who'd fixed their cars, shared their beers, was a monster. Neighbors who'd known him for decades reeled, replaying every interaction for signs they'd missed. His co-workers at the shop recalled his odd habits, long breaks, sudden trips out of town. But nothing had seemed sinister. The police dug into his past, uncovering a pattern. Danny had lived in other towns, always leaving after a year or two, always near a missing girl's case that went cold. No convictions, no proof, but the dots were connecting, and they painted a portrait of a serial predator. Sarah's rescue was a miracle, but her recovery was a battle. The barn had stolen her sense of safety, replacing it with nightmares of chains and Danny's voice. Low, almost kind, as he told her she was special. She couldn't return to school, couldn't face the stairs. Her family moved to Tulsa, hoping distance would heal. Sarah leaned on therapy, on her parents' love, but the trauma was a shadow she'd carried. Years later, she'd find purpose in advocacy, speaking for abduction survivors, her voice steady despite the pain. But in 2009, she was just a girl, trying to piece herself back together. The trial was a reckoning. Danny sat stone-faced, offering no defense, no remorse. Sarah's testimony, delivered via video to spare her the courtroom, was devastating. She described the barn's cold, the way Danny watched her, his promises that they'd be together, the notebook, the tapes, the photos. It was a mountain of evidence. The jury convicted him in hours, sentencing him to life without parole. Danny didn't flinch, his eyes fixed on the floor, as if the verdict was someone else's story. Enid struggled to heal. The barn was razed, the land left barren, a scar on the town's soul. Danny's house became a ghost, windows boarded, avoided by all. Rumors spread. Other victims. Other barns. Secrets Danny took to his cell. Police chased the leads, but most ended in frustration. One name, a girl missing from a neighboring town in 2005, surfaced in Danny's notes, but her body was never found. Her family, like Sarah's, lived with questions that had no answers. As the rain fades to a murmur, Sarah's story lingers, a wound that time can't fully close. Danny Whitaker wasn't a criminal mastermind, wasn't a name that made headlines beyond Enid's borders. He was just a man, one of countless in small towns everywhere whose darkness festered in plain sight. Sarah survived, her courage, a light in the gloom. But what of the others? The names in his notebook, the girls who never came home. In Enid, where the fields stretch endless and the rain falls soft, the past whispers a warning. Evil doesn't need a stage. Sometimes it's the man you've known forever, the one whose smile you never question. And somewhere in the quiet of another town, another Danny might be watching, waiting for the rain to hide his steps. Case 4, the heist that burned Melbourne. The rain pounds, now a restless cadence over the gritty docks of Melbourne, Australia. It's 1997, and this city pulses with life. Trams rattling, markets buzzing, the Yarrow River glinting under neon lights. But beyond the vibrant streets, in the shadows of warehouses and rusted cranes, a different world thrives. It's a world of deals struck in whispers, of men who live by their wits and their nerve. Here, in this underbelly, 3 men weave a plan that will ignite chaos and leave Melbourne reeling. At its center is Daniel Whitmore, daddy to his mates, a 34-year-old petty criminal with a hunger for something bigger. His story isn't one of calculated evil, but of greed and desperation, a spark that sets a city ablaze. This is the tale of a heist gone wrong, a betrayal that turned deadly, and a night that no one saw coming. Danny Whitmore was no stranger to trouble. Born in Melbourne's working-class suburbs, he'd grown up scrappy, always chasing the next score. By his 30s, he was a small-time crook, car thefts, break-ins, the occasional bar brawl. He was charming, quick with a grin, the kind of guy who could talk his way out of anything, but charm only went so far, and Danny was tired of scraping by. He wanted the big leagues, a job that would set him up for life. His chance came through 2 men, Ryan Brooks, a hot-headed safecracker with a chip on his shoulder, and Stephen Carter, a wiry driver who knew Melbourne's back streets like his own pulse. Together, they were a crew, rough, reckless, and ready to gamble everything on one audacious plan. The target was an armored van, a cash courier for one of Melbourne's biggest banks. Every Friday, it rolled through the docks carrying payrolls for local businesses. Hundreds of thousands in crisp bills ripe for the taking. Danny had heard whispers about it at a pub. A tip from a dock worker with deaths and loose lips. The van's route was predictable, its security lax. 2 guards, 1 armed, bored by routine. But Danny, it was perfect. A high-stakes job, but not impossible. He spent weeks planning, mapping the route, timing the traffic, studying the guards' habits. Ryan and Stephen were skeptical, but hungry, drawn by the promise of a payout that could change their lives. They met in a dingy flat, poring over blueprints, their voices low as the rain battered the windows. This was their shot, but it was a tightrope, and one misstep could send them plummeting. Danny's plan was simple but bold. They'd hit the van at a quiet intersection where the docks met a maze of warehouses. Ryan would disable the vehicle, a quick jab to the tires, a smoke grenade for chaos. Stephen would handle the getaway, a stolen sedan stashed nearby, its plates swapped. Danny would take the guards, using a fake gun to intimidate, not kill. They'd be in and out in 3 minutes, vanishing before the cops could blink. It was risky, but Danny's confidence was infectious. He painted a picture of freedom, beaches, cash, a life beyond Melbourne's grind. Ryan, volatile but loyal, was in. Stephen, cautious but broke, nodded. The pact was sealed, the rain outside a fitting omen for what was to come. The night of the heist, the rain was relentless, turning the docks into a slick, shadowed maze. It was Friday, just past 8:00 p.m., the city alive, but the docks deserted. Danny, Ryan, and Stephen waited in the sedan, hearts pounding, the air thick with cigarette smoke. Danny clutched the fake pistol, his knuckles white. Ryan, wired, checked his tools, muttering about the score. Stephen gripped the wheel, his eyes darting to the rearview mirror. The van was due any minute, its headlights expected to pierce the downpour. They were ready, or so they thought. But plans, like men, are fragile, and this one was about to shatter. The van appeared on schedule, its engine a low growl against the rain. It slowed at the intersection, just as Danny predicted. Ryan moved first, darting out with the crowbars, slashing the rear tire in one fluid motion. The van lurched, the driver cursing as he hit the brakes. Danny followed, pulling a ski mask over his face, the fake gun steady in his hand. "Out! Now!" he barked, banging on the driver's window. The guards froze. Caught off guard, their hands raised. Stephen revved the sedan, ready to bolt. For a moment, it worked, the plan unfolding like clockwork. Then Ryan, impulsive and reckless, changed everything. Instead of sticking to the script, Ryan yanked open the van's side door, his own gun, real, not fake, gleaming in the rain. "Move it!" he screamed, his voice cracking with adrenaline. The second guard, younger, panicked, reaching for his holster. Ryan didn't hesitate. A single shot rang out, sharp and final, the guard collapsing in a heap, blood pooling on the wet pavement. Danny froze, his mind reeling. "What did you do?" he hissed. But Ryan was already scrambling, grabbing the cash bags, his eyes wild. Stephen shouted from the sedan, "Go, go!" The plan was dead, and so was their future. The docks erupted into chaos. The driver, still in the van, hit an alarm, its wail cutting through the rain. Danny, stunned, grabbed a bag and ran. Ryan behind him, their boots slipping on the slick ground. They piled into the sedan, Stephen flooring it, the car fishtailing as they sped into the maze of warehouses. Sirens were already rising in the distance, faint but closing fast. Danny's mind raced. This wasn't a heist anymore. It was a murder. Ryan, panting, clutched the bags, his gun still in hand. "We're fine," he kept saying, as if words could undo the blood. Stephen, pale, said nothing, his focus on the road. They were together, but trust was crumbling. The getaway was a desperate sprint. Stephen wove through back streets, dodging the main roads, the rain blurring the windshield. They ditched the sedan in an alley, switching to a second car, a beat-up van Stephen had prepped. The cash, maybe $200,000, 0 cents, was stuffed under the seats, a fraction of what they'd hoped. Danny's fake gun was useless now, tossed out the window. Ryan's real one, still warm, was a liability they couldn't shake. The sirens grew louder, a noose tightening around them. Danny, the planner, was unraveling. his voice sharp as he cursed Ryan. "You killed us," he spat. Ryan, defiant, snapped back, "You wanted the score?" Steven, silent, drove, his loyalty fraying with every mile. Their escape led to the dock's edge, where Melbourne's port sprawled, a labyrinth of cranes, containers, and cargo ships. Danny had a half-baked plan. Hide on the ship, slip out of the country, start over. It was a long shot, but they were out of options. They abandoned the van, sprinting through the rain, the cash bags heavy on their shoulders. The port was a ghost town, the rain driving workers indoors. They found a freighter, its gangway unguarded, and slipped aboard, hearts pounding as they ducked into the hold. The ship smelled of oil and salt, its belly a maze of crates and shadows. For a moment they thought they'd made it. Then the lights came on. Police had tracked the van, their search fanning out across the docks. A dock worker, braving the rain, had seen 3 men running and called it in. Now, floodlights swept the port, radios crackling as officers closed in. Danny, Ryan, and Steven crouched behind crates, the cash at their feet, their breaths shallow. The rain was their only ally, masking their footsteps, but it couldn't hide them forever. Danny whispered a plan, split up, meet later. But Ryan, paranoid, gripped his gun. "No one's splitting," he growled, his eyes darting. Steven, quiet till now, snapped. "You ruined us, Ryan, you and that trigger." The crew was fracturing, their bond a casualty of the guard's blood. The hold grew claustrophobic, the ship's creaks blending with the rain. Footsteps echoed above. Police, searching deck by deck. Danny's mind raced, replaying every choice, every moment that led to this. He'd wanted a legacy, not a body count. Ryan, pacing, was a liability, his gun a ticking bomb. Steven, the steadiest of them, was done, his eyes saying what his voice wouldn't. He'd sell them out if it saved him. The cash, their dream, felt like a curse now, its weight pulling them deeper into the abyss. Danny realized the truth too late. Greed doesn't just burn you, it burns everyone. The police tightened their net, dogs barking, flashlights slicing the dark. A shout rang out. "They're here!" And the hold became a trap. Ryan, panicking, raised his gun, ready to shoot his way out. Danny lunged, tackling him, the bag spilling across the floor. "No more!" he hissed. But Ryan's desperation was a wildfire. Steven bolted, abandoning them, his footsteps fading as he sought his own escape. The police were close now, their voices sharp, weapons drawn. Danny and Ryan, tangled in their struggle, faced a choice, fight or surrender. But the guards' blood had sealed their fate. The rain was a roar as the police stormed the hold, their shouts drowning out the ship's groans. Danny, pinned beneath Ryan, saw the flashlights first, their beams blinding. "Drop it!" an officer bellowed, and Ryan's gun clattered to the floor, his fight gone. Danny raised his hands, his voice hoarse. "We're done." Ryan, wild-eyed, cursed them all, his defiance hollow. The cash lay scattered, soaked and useless, a monument to their failure. Steven, caught on the deck, was already in cuffs, his betrayal complete. The heist, planned with precision, had ended in chaos, its cost measured in blood and years. Melbourne woke to headlines that screamed of murder and betrayal. The guard, a father of 2, was mourned, his name a wound in the city's heart. Danny, Ryan, and Steven faced trial, their faces plastered across every paper. Danny took the stand, his charm gone, his voice flat as he admitted the plan but blamed Ryan for the shot. Ryan, unrepentant, claimed self-defense, his lies crumbling under scrutiny. Steven, the weakest link, turned informant, trading a lighter sentence for testimony. The jury didn't waver. Danny and Ryan got life for murder and robbery, Steven a decade for his role. The cash, recovered but bloodstained, was returned to the bank, a hollow victory. The docks never felt the same. The freighter impounded during the investigation became a ghost story, whispered about by workers who swore they heard shouts in the rain. Danny's name faded, but the guards lingered, his family's grief a reminder of the heist's true cost. Ryan, volatile to the end, clashed with inmates, his life a series of cell blocks. Steven, released years later, vanished, his shame a shadow he couldn't outrun. Danny the dreamer grew old in prison, his plans reduced to memories of a night when everything burned. Melbourne moved on, its pulse unbroken, but the heist left a scar. The docks, once a place of labor, now carried a chill, the rain a reminder of three men who gambled and lost. Danny Whitmore wasn't evil, not in the way of monsters. He was a man, flawed and greedy, whose ambition outstripped his sense. The guard's blood, Ryan's trigger, Steven's betrayal, they were the sparks, but Danny was the match. His story isn't one of masterminds or empires. It's a warning, etched in the rain-soaked streets. Chase the big score, and you might lose more than you ever dreamed. As the rain softens to a sigh, the docks fall silent, their secrets buried in the tide. Danny's heist was a moment, a flare in Melbourne's night, but its echoes linger. How many others plan in the shadows, their eyes on the prize, blind to the cost? The guard's family grieves, the city heals, but somewhere, in another port, another crew might be watching, waiting for their chance. The rain falls and the question hangs, what will their gamble cost? What will they leave bleeding in the dark? Case 5, The Cage in Tegucigalpa. The rain falls steady now, a mournful veil over the crowded streets of Tegucigalpa, Honduras. It's 2014 and this city throbs with chaos. Honking taxis, vibrant markets, and a pulse that never slows. But beneath the noise and the shadows of crumbling apartments and narrow alleys, a darker rhythm beats. Here, where desperation and opportunity collide, a man named Miguel Salazar weaves a web of control, his ordinary face masking a chilling intent. Known as Mikey to those who pass him by, he's a 36-year-old courier, a nobody in the city's churn, but Mikey's quiet life hides a compulsion that will shatter a young woman's world and leave Tegucigalpa grappling with the predator in its midst. This is the story of a kidnapping, a hidden room, and a fight for survival that burned brighter than the city's fear. Miguel Salazar was a man of routine, blending into Tegucigalpa's hustle like a shadow. Born in a rough neighborhood, he'd scratched out a living delivering packages, his beat-up sedan a fixture on the city's streets. To his clients, he was reliable, polite, always flashing a quick smile before vanishing into the traffic. But Mikey's life was a facade. Behind his easy demeanor was a past littered with small crimes, pickpocketing, scams, a stint in jail for forging checks. He'd learned to stay under the radar to charm his way out of trouble. By 2014, though, charm wasn't enough. Years of scraping by had left him restless, his mind turning to darker desires, a need to dominate, to possess. And in the city's crowded chaos, he found his target. Her name was Carolina Reyes, a 19-year-old university student with dreams as big as the sky. Carolina was a rarity in Tegucigalpa, a young woman from a modest family who'd clawed her way into college, her eyes set on becoming a lawyer. She was vibrant, determined, her laugh a beacon in the lecture halls. Her routine was packed, classes, part-time work at a cafe, late night studying in her dorm. Her parents, proud but protective, called daily, their voices a tether to home. Carolina navigated the city with caution, aware of its dangers, but she believed in her path, in the safety of her hard-won life. She didn't know someone was watching, waiting, his obsession growing with every step she took. Mikey first saw Carolina at the cafe, her apron tied tight as she poured coffee and joked with customers. Maybe it was her confidence, her defiance of the city's weight that drew him to Mikey. She was more than a person. She was a challenge, a prize to claim. He started visiting the cafe, always at the same time, ordering a black coffee he barely touched. He'd sit in the corner, his eyes tracking her, memorizing her shifts, her habits. He was careful, never lingering too long, never speaking beyond a mumbled thanks. But at home, in his cramped apartment, his fixation took shape. He sketched her schedule, mapped her routes, his notes, a chilling blueprint of control. This wasn't impulse. It was a project, and Carolina was its heart. The night it happened, the rain was a soft curtain, muting the city's din. Carolina left the cafe late, her shift running over, her backpack heavy with textbooks. She texted a friend she was heading home, her phone glowing as she stepped into the drizzle. Mikey was ready. He'd spent weeks preparing, choosing a spot where the street lights flickered, where the alley swallowed sound. His sedan idled nearby, a tarp in the trunk, a rag soaked in chloroform tucked in his sleeve. When Carolina passed, he moved like a ghost, silent, swift, his hand clamping over her mouth. She fought, her nails clawing his arm, but the drug was faster. Her phone fell, its screen cracking in the rain. and Mikey drove into the night. Carolina slumped in the back. Her absence was a scream in the silence. Carolina's roommate, expecting her by 10 o'clock, grew uneasy when midnight passed. Her phone was off, her text unanswered. By morning, the roommate called Carolina's parents, their panic spreading like wildfire. They rushed to the police, their voices breaking as they filed a report. Tegucigalpa's authorities, stretched thin by the city's crime, were slow to act. Kidnappings weren't rare here. Gangs, cartels, lone opportunists made them a grim reality. But Carolina's case felt different. She wasn't reckless, wasn't tied to the city's underworld. Her family, though not wealthy, was connected. Her father, a respected teacher with friends in local government. Pressure mounted, and the police launched a search. The city rallied, its heart stirred by Carolina's story, her face bright, hopeful, plastered billboards and newsstands, her name a plea on every channel. Classmates organized marches, volunteers scoured alleys, and her parents begged for leads, their grief raw on live TV. But days passed with no trace, the rain washing away hope as easily as evidence. Detectives chased dead ends, ex-boyfriends, classmates, random tips, but nothing stuck. The city's chaos was a perfect cloak, and Mikey knew it. He moved through his routine, delivering packages, nodding to neighbors, his secret locked tight in his apartment. Then a spark. A street vendor, a woman who sold tamales near Carolina's cafe, came forward. She'd seen a sedan the night of the disappearance parked oddly in the alley. The driver, she said, was familiar, a courier, always alone, his face forgettable but his eyes sharp. She didn't know his name, but her description was enough. Medium build, dark hair, a scar on his left hand. Police cross-referenced it with delivery records landing on Miguel Salazar. Mikey's name was a whisper, a man so ordinary he barely registered. But his address, blocks from the cafe, and a scar on his hand, seen by a client, set off alarms. they brought him in, expecting quick denial. Mikey was calm, his voice smooth, claiming he'd been home watching soccer. His sedan, he said, was in the shop that night, a lie easily checked. Detectives noted his composure, too polished, his answers rehearsed. A search warrant followed, and what they found turned Tegucigalpa's blood cold. Mikey's apartment was sparse, a bachelor's mess of takeout boxes and unwashed clothes. But in the bedroom, behind a wardrobe, was a hidden door, so seamless it seemed part of the wall. Beyond it, a small, soundproofed room, a concrete cage, no larger than a closet. And there, curled on a thin mattress, was Carolina. She was alive, her face pale, her eyes hollow from 6 days of captivity. Chains bound her wrists, a bucket in the corner her only toilet. The room was a fortress, soundproof foam, a triple-locked door, no windows. Officers freed her, their hands trembling as they carried her to safety. Carolina sobbed, her voice a whisper. He said I was his. Mikey, arrested in his living room, offered no resistance, his face blank as if the game was over. But the horror was just unfolding. The investigation peeled back Mikey's mask. The room wasn't a hasty build, it was engineered, the walls reinforced, the soundproofing meticulous. He'd spent months, maybe years, crafting it, his deliveries a cover for buying materials. His laptop revealed a chilling obsession, searches for how to keep someone quiet, underground rooms, and Carolina's name, over and over. A journal, hidden under his bed, was worse. Pages of fantasies about owning her, about a life, where she wrote of other women too, their names and routines listed like a hunter's log. Was Carolina his first, or just the one he'd caught? Tegucigalpa reeled. Mikey Salazar, the courier, who'd smiled at shopkeepers, was a predator. Neighbors who'd shared beers with him questioned every moment. Their trust in the city's chaos shattered. Police dug into his past, finding a trail of red flags. His brief jail time for fraud had followed a stalking complaint dropped for lack of proof. He'd moved often, always near universities, always alone. No other victims were confirmed, but his journal named women across the city, some unaware they'd been watched. The scope of his planning was a nightmare, a shadow over every street. Carolina's rescue was a miracle, but her recovery was a war. The room had stolen her sense of safety, replacing it with nightmares of chains and Mikey's voice, soft, almost loving as he spoke of their future. She couldn't return to college, couldn't face the city's noise. Her family moved north, seeking peace. But the trauma followed. Therapy helped, but the scars were deep. triggered by the sound of rain or the hum of a car. Yet Carolina fought back, channeling her pain into advocacy, speaking for survivors years later, her voice a beacon of defiance. In 2014, though, she was a young woman piecing herself together, one fragile step at a time. The trial was swift but brutal. Mikey sat silent, his eyes fixed on the floor, offering no defense. Carolina's testimony, delivered through a screen to spare her his gaze, was a gut punch. She described the room's cold, the way Mikey watched her, his promises that she'd understand him. The journal, the laptop, the room. It was undeniable. The jury convicted him in hours, sentencing him to life without parole. Mikey didn't react, his silence a final act of control, leaving the courtroom with questions no one could answer. Tegucigalpa tried to heal, but the case left a wound. Mikey's apartment was gutted, the hidden room destroyed, but its ghost lingered, a reminder of the city's hidden dangers. Rumors swirled, other rooms, other victims, secrets Mikey took to his cell. Police chased the journal's names, but most led nowhere, the women safe but shaken to know they'd been targets. One name, a student missing from 2012, haunted investigators. Her case cold, but eerily similar. Mikey, locked away, offered nothing, his smile a taunt. As the rain fades to a whisper, Carolina's story clings like damp air. Miguel Salazar wasn't a kingpin, wasn't a name that echoed beyond Tegucigalpa's streets. He was just a man, one among millions, whose darkness festered behind a delivery slip and a nod. Carolina survived, her strength a light in the city's chaos. But what of the others? The names in his journal, the women who might never know how close they came. Yeft. In Tegucigalpa, where the rain falls and the streets hum, the past murmurs a warning. Evil doesn't need a spotlight. Sometimes it's the courier you barely notice, the smile you never question. And somewhere, in another city, another Mikey might be watching, his pen scratching out the next name, waiting for the rain to hide his steps. K6, the ransom of Madrid. The rain weaves a soft shroud over Madrid, Spain, its rhythm a restless pulse against the city's ancient stones. It's 1998, and Madrid hums with elegance. Cobblestone streets, grand plazas, and the chatter of cafes spilling into the night. But beneath this vibrant surface, in the hidden corners where wealth and power collide, a different game is played. Here, in the shadows of opulence, Rafael Cardenas orchestrates a crime that will shake the city's elite. A businessman by day, a predator by design, Cardenas is a man whose charm masks a chilling ambition. This is the story of a kidnapping, a battle of wits, and a young woman's defiance that burned brighter than Madrid's fear. Welcome to the darkness behind the city's golden facade. Rafael Cardenas was a name that opened doors. At 45, he was a fixture in Madrid's high society, his tailored suits and easy smile a passport to the city's elite circles. He ran a shipping company, a legitimate front that moved goods across Europe, but whispers tied him to shadier dealings, smuggling, money laundering, connections to organized crime. To most, he was untouchable, a man who dined with politicians and donated to charities, his past a carefully curated blank. Born to a modest family, Cardenas had clawed his way up, his intelligence matched only by his ruthlessness. By 1998, he was restless, his empire stable, but his hunger unsatisfied. He craved a score that would cement his legend, and he found it in the daughter of a man who symbolized everything he envied. Her name was Clara Menendez, a 22-year-old art student with a spirit as vivid as the canvases she painted. Clara was the only child of Javier Menendez, a bank executive whose wealth and influence made him a titan in Madrid. She was bright, fiercely independent, her life a blend of university lectures, gallery openings, and late-night debates with friends. Clara moved through Madrid with a quiet confidence, aware of her family's status, but determined to carve her own path. Her father, protective but proud, trusted her to navigate the city, their bond a fortress against its dangers. But no fortress is impregnable, and Cardenas had been watching, his plan as meticulous as it was merciless. Cardenas' obsession with Clara wasn't personal, at least not at first. She was a means to an end, a lever to pry open her father's vault. He learned of Javier's wealth through a crooked accountant, a man who spilled secrets for a price. Claire's routine was the key. Classes at Complutense University, walks through Retiro Park, evenings at a favorite tapas bar. Cardenas spent months building his operation, recruiting a small crew, hardened men from his smuggling days, loyal but expendable. The plan was simple. kidnap Clara, demand a ransom, vanish before the police could blink. But Cardenas wasn't just after money, he wanted fear. The kind that would echo through Madrid's elite, proving no one was untouchable. Clara was his message, and he meant to deliver it. The night it happened, the rain was a gentle mist, softening Madrid's edges. Clara left the gallery event early, her portfolio tucked under her arm, her phone buzzing with texts from friends. She'd declined a ride, preferring the walk to clear her head. Cardenas' men were ready, parked in a black van near her route, their faces hidden behind balaclavas. The spot was perfect. A quiet street, its lights dimmed by the rain. As Clara passed, they moved fast, two men grabbing her, a third muffling her scream. She fought, kicking, clawing, but a needle pricked her arm, and the world went dark. Her portfolio hit the pavement, its sketches scattering in the rain, and the van melted into the night. Clara's absence was a thunderbolt. Her friends, expecting her at a bar, grew uneasy when she didn't show. Her phone was off, her texts unanswered. By midnight, they called Javier, whose calm shattered as he realized something was wrong. He contacted the police, his influence ensuring a swift response. Madrid's authorities, no stranger to swift response, launched a task force, their command center buzzing with urgency. Clara's face, radiant, determined, flashed across every screen, her name a plea on every radio. The city's elite, usually insulated, felt a chill. This wasn't a random act. This was targeted, and they were all vulnerable. The police worked frantically, chasing leads that vanished like smoke. Clara's portfolio, found sodden in the street, was their only clue, its sketches a haunting reminder of her vibrancy. Javier, a man used to control, was unraveling, his wealth useless against the void of his daughter's absence. He offered a reward, millions of pesetas. But the kidnappers were silent. Days passed, Madrid's hope fraying as the rain fell harder. Then, a call came, untraceable, the voice calm, professional. It was Cardenas, laying out terms. $5 million, cash, no police, no tricks. Delivery in 72 hours, or Clara would pay. Javier, torn between fear and fury, agreed, but he wasn't a man to sit idle. He reached out to a private investigator, a former cop with a knack for bending rules. Clara, meanwhile, was trapped in a nightmare. She woke in a basement, its walls damp, its air heavy with mildew. The space was small, windowless, a single bulb casting shadows. Her wrists were bound, her body aching from the drug. Two men guarded her, Javier, a wiry thug with nervous eyes, and Luis, a brute who barely spoke. They fed her sparingly, their silence a wall she couldn't breach. But Clara wasn't broken. She listened, watched, her mind racing for a way out. The basement, she realized, was temporary, a safe house on Madrid's outskirts. Cardenas visited once, his presence chilling. He didn't gloat, didn't threaten, just studied her, his eyes cold, calculating. "Your father will pay," he said, his voice like ice. Clara met his gaze, her defiance a spark in the dark. She began to work on Javier, the weaker link. He was young, barely 25, his nerves fraying under the job's weight. Clara spoke softly, asking his name, planting doubts. "Do you trust him?" she'd whispered, nodding toward Luis. "What's your cut?" Javier's eyes flickered, his loyalty thinning. Clara's art school had taught her to read people, to find their cracks. She leaned into his fear, her words a slow poison. Meanwhile, her father and the investigator set a trap. The ransom drop was planned at an abandoned factory, a place Javier's contacts could control, but the investigator had tipped off an elite police unit, their snipers hidden in the shadows. It was a gamble, one that could cost Clara's life. The basement grew stifling, the rain's muffled drumbeat, Clara's only link to the outside. She sensed time running out, her talks with Javier her only weapon. One night he slipped, admitting they were moving her soon. Cardenas' orders. Clara pushed harder, her voice steady. "You're disposable to him," she said. "Help me, and I'll help you." Javier hesitated, his hand on the door, but didn't act. The next day, Cardenas called Javier again, confirming the drop. The police, listening through a wire, finalized their plan. The factory was a maze of rust and decay, perfect for an ambush. Javier, torn, stayed silent, his moment to choose slipping away. The night of the drop, the rain was a torrent, turning the factory into a slick, shadowed trap. Javier's men arrived, bags ready, their eyes scanning the dark. Clara was in the van, bound, her heart pounding as she sensed the shift. Javier drove, his hands trembling, Luis beside him, gun in hand. At the factory, Javier's investigator handed over the cash, his voice steady despite the sniper's crosshairs. Cardenas, watching from a distance, sensed a trap. He signaled his men to abort, but it was too late. Police stormed in, flashlights blinding, their shouts drowning the rain. Luis fired, a desperate shot, and bullets answered, dropping him in seconds. Javier froze, his hands up, Clara's words echoing in his head. He surrendered, shouting, "She's in the van!" Clara was freed, her wrists raw, her body shaking but unbroken. She ran to her father, their embrace a lifeline in the chaos. Cardenas, ever the ghost, slipped away, his car vanishing into Madrid's labyrinth. The police recovered the cash, arrested Javier and the surviving men, but Cardenas was gone, his empire crumbling, but his freedom intact. Javier, facing years in prison, gave up names, but none led to his boss. Cardenas became a fugitive, his face a shadow in Interpol's files, his wealth scattered in offshore accounts. Madrid exhaled, but the scar remained. Clara's rescue was a triumph, but her recovery was a battle. The basement haunted her. Its damp walls, Cardenas' stare, the weight of her own survival. She left university, moved to Barcelona, her art becoming her refuge. Therapy helped, but the nightmares lingered, triggered by rain or silence. Yet Clara was a fighter. Years later, she'd returned to Madrid, her paintings a testament to resilience, her voice advocating for victims of crime. In 1998, though, she was a young woman, rebuilding, her defiance a light against the dark. The trial was a spectacle, though. Cardenas' absence loomed large. Javier and his crew faced kidnapping and extortion charges, their sentences long but hollow without the mastermind. Javier's testimony painted Cardenas as a phantom, always one step ahead. Madrid's elite, shaken tight in security, their trust in their world fractured. The factory was demolished, its ghosts buried, but Cardenas' name lingered. A warning whispered at galas. Police chase leads, sightings in Lisbon, Dubai, Buenos Aires, but he was smoke, his fortune, his shield. As the rain slows to a murmur, Clara's story clings like mist. Rafael Cardenas wasn't a monster in the traditional sense, not a creature of basements or chains. He was a man, polished and cunning, whose ambition turned lives into pawns. Clara survived, her courage a beacon in Madrid's gilded shadows. But what of Cardenas, still out there, his next move unknown? In Madrid, where the rain falls from the plaza's glow, the past whispers a truth. Evil doesn't always lurk in alleys. Sometimes it wears a suit, shakes your hand, and plans your ruin. And somewhere, in another city, another Cardenas might be watching, his smile hiding the next game, waiting for the rain to mask his steps. Ace 7, the slaughterhouse of San Salvador. The rain falls heavy now, a relentless dirge over the jagged edges of San Salvador, El Salvador. It's 2004, and this city pulses with a raw, unyielding energy. Street vendors shouting, buses groaning, the air thick with diesel and desperation, but beyond the crowded markets and neon-lit bars, in the forgotten corners where decay festers, a darker force stirs. Here, in a city that knows violence too well, Salvador Meada Mayo is Olobo, weaves a web of terror, a criminal mastermind. Cloaked in the guise of a businessman, Meta's calm exterior hides a predator's heart. This is the story of a kidnapping, a betrayal that turned deadly, and a young woman's survival in a place where hope is a fragile thing. Welcome to the shadows of San Salvador, where the rain can't wash away the blood. Salvador Meta was a name whispered with fear and respect. At 40, he was a phantom in San Salvador's underworld. His legitimate import-export business a front for extortion, smuggling, and worse. To the city's elite, he was a charming enigma, his tailored suits and calculated smiles opening doors to power. But to those who knew the truth, Meta was El Lobo, the wolf, ruthless, precise, a man who thrived on control. Born in a slum, he'd built his empire through cunning, his mind a chessboard where every move was planned. By 2004, his network spanned Central America, his wealth rivaling the city's tycoons. But power wasn't enough. Meta craved fear, the kind that would make San Salvador's elite tremble. And he found his target in a young woman who represented everything he could never own. Her name was Lucia Gonzalez, a 22-year-old law student with a fire that lit up even San Salvador's darkest corners. Lucia was the daughter of Roberto Gonzalez, a senior attorney whose crusade against corruption made him a hero to some, a target to others. She was brilliant, compassionate, her days filled with classes, volunteer work, and dreams of reforming her fractured city. Lucia moved through San Salvador with caution, her father's warnings etched in her mind. But she refused to live in fear. Her routine, university, a local clinic, home, was a thread of normalcy in a city where danger lurked. She didn't know that thread was being studied, its every knot mapped by a man who saw her as a pawn in his game. Meta's plan was born in the winter of 2004, sparked by a rival's taunt that he'd never dared touch the Gonzalez family. Lucia was the perfect mark. Her father's wealth and influence a jackpot, her visibility a chance to send a message. Meta spent months preparing, his enforcers tracking Lucia's movements, their reports as detailed as a military dossier. He chose a slaughterhouse on the city's outskirts, a decaying relic shut down for safety violations, its rusted hooks and stained walls a perfect prison. His crew included El Sombra, a silent enforcer whose loyalty was absolute, and Carlos Ortega, nicknamed El Abora, a mercenary with ambition that Meta underestimated. The plan was clinical. Kidnap Lucia, demand a fortune, vanish into the city's chaos, but Meta's arrogance would be his undoing. The night it happened, the rain was a steady hum, cloaking San Salvador's noise. Lucia left the clinic late, her shift running over, her bag slung over her shoulder. She texted her mother she was heading home, her footsteps quick against the wet pavement. Meta's men were waiting, their van parked in an alley near her route, its engine idling. El Sombra led the grab. Swift, silent, a cloth pressed to Lucia's face, her struggle fading as chloroform took hold. Her phone hit the ground, its screen dark, and the van slipped into the night, the rain erasing their tracks. Lucia was gone, and San Salvador's heart skipped a beat. Her absence was a wound that bled fast. Lucia's mother, expecting her by 9 o'clock, called her friends, her panic rising when no one had seen her. By midnight, Roberto was at the police station, his influence shaking the city's sluggish system awake. San Salvador's authorities, battle-scarred by gang wars, knew a high-profile kidnapping when they saw one. They launched a task force, their command center a hive of tension. Lucia's face, bright, determined, flooded every channel, her name a prayer on every street. Roberto offered a reward, his voice cracking on TV, but the kidnappers were silent, their silence a blade held to the city's throat. The slaughterhouse was Lucia's prison, its air thick with rot and despair. She woke chained to a hook, the bulb above casting jagged shadows. El Sombra stood watch, his silence chilling, his eyes unreadable. The room was a tomb. Concrete walls, no windows, the rain a distant echo. Lucia, terrified but defiant, studied her captors, her law school training sharpening her instincts. Meta visited once, his presence a cold weight. "Your father will pay," he said, his voice smooth, professional. Lucia glared, her fear laced with fury. "He'll find you," she spat. Meta smiled, unfazed, but her words lingered, a crack in his control. Days crawled by, each one an eternity. Meta played his game with precision, waiting 12 hours before calling Roberto. His demand was staggering, $500,000. 0 cents, cash, no police, 48 hours. The sum wasn't just money, it was a statement. A warning to San Salvador's elite that no one was safe. Roberto, a man who'd faced cartels, was torn. Paying risked fueling Meta's empire. Defying him risked Lucia's life. He gathered the cash, his connections speeding the process, but he wasn't blind. He contacted Unidad Especializada contra el Crimen Organizado, an elite anti-crime unit. Their reputation forged in blood. The police, wary of leaks, planned a trap. Their trust in Roberto, their only leverage. Lucia in the slaughterhouse fought to stay sharp. She was fed scraps, given water to survive, her chains a constant weight. The silence was torture, broken only by the rain's drip and El Sombra's pacing. She spoke to him, testing his resolve, but he was stone. Then she heard voices, arguments, tense, urgent. Something was wrong. Meta's perfect plan was fraying, and Lucia sensed it. The voices grew louder, footsteps pounding. a deep voice barking orders. She held her breath, praying as the slaughterhouse became a powder keg. The unraveling began with Carlos Ortega. Ambitious and greedy, he'd grown tired of Meta's shadow, his cut of the ransom too small for his ego. He'd been feeding information to a rival cartel, men who saw Meta's empire as ripe for the taking. Lucia's kidnapping was their chance, and Ortega was their mole. Meta, sensing betrayal, underestimated its depth. Ortega's move came fast. A meeting in the slaughterhouse, his gun drawn, his voice cold. "You done, Lobo," he said. A shot rang out, Met's body hitting the floor, blood pooling in the rain-soaked concrete. Lucia, hearing the chaos, squeezed her eyes shut, her heart pounding. The wolf was dead, but her nightmare wasn't over. Ortega wasn't a savior. He cut Lucia's ropes, dragging her from the room, his grip bruising. "You're my ticket now," he growled, his plan clear. "Double the ransom, take Meta's empire." He shoved her into a van, the city's lights flickering in the distance, a cruel reminder of freedom. Ortega drove through back roads, his men tense, their guns ready. Lucia, exhausted but alert, memorized the route, her mind racing for an escape. The new hideout was an abandoned motel, its walls graffitied, its air thick with dust. Ortega tied her to a chair, his phone out, his demand now $1 million, 0 cents. Roberto, already stretched, was pushed to the edge, his hope fraying. Roberto knew Ortega was a wild card, his promises hollow. He'd hesitated with Meta, but this was different. He doubled down with Unidad. Their plans shifting to a new drop point, an old warehouse near the docks, a place they could control. Ortega, smug, agreed, believing himself untouchable. Lucia, in the motel, felt the tension, her captor's nerves raw. She spoke to one, a young thug, sowing doubt. "Ortega will ditch you," she whispered. He flinched, but stayed loyal. The drop was set, the rain a roar as the hour approached. The warehouse was a trap, its shadows alive with Unidad snipers. Roberto stood in the center, a briefcase of cash at his feet, his heart a drumbeat. Ortega's van pulled up, Lucia inside, her wrists bound. He stepped out, gun in hand, his men fanning out. "The money," he barked. Roberto nodded, stepping back, his eyes on the van. Then, chaos. Snipers emerged, their weapons raised, their shouts splitting the rain. Ortega fired, his men scrambling, but they were outgunned. Bullets flew, Lucia dropping to the van's floor, her breath ragged. Ortega fell, blood pooling, his empire a fleeting dream. Unidad stormed the van, freeing Lucia, her sobs mingling with the rain as she ran to her father. San Salvador exhaled, but the wound was deep. Lucia's rescue was a victory, but her recovery was a battle. The slaughterhouse haunted her. Its hooks, Meta's voice, Ortega's grip. She left law school, moved to a quieter town, her dreams reshaped by trauma. Therapy became her anchor, but the nightmares came, triggered by rain or silence. Yet Lucia was unbreakable. Years later, she'd speak for survivors, her voice a call to resilience. But in 2004, she was a young woman, rebuilding, her strength a light in the dark. The trial was a formality, Ortega's men facing long sentences, Meta's empire dismantled. His death closed one chapter, but his network's remnants scattered, some fleeing, others arrested. San Salvador's elite shaken, bolstered security, their faith in the city fractured. The slaughterhouse was razed, its land cursed, a scar on the city's soul. Police chased leads from Ortega's betrayal, finding links to other kidnappings, but many went cold, their victims lost to the rain. As the rain softens to a sigh, Lucia's story lingers, a ghost in San Salvador's streets. Salvador Meta wasn't a lone predator, but a kingpin whose ambition fed on fear. Lucia survived, her courage a beacon in the city's chaos. But what of the others? The names in Meta's files? The lives he touched? In San Salvador, where the rain falls and the city hums, the past whispers a truth. Evil doesn't always hide in shadow. Sometime it sits at your table, its smile a promise of ruin. And somewhere in another city, another wolf might be planning, his eyes on the next prey, waiting for the rain to mask his howl. Case 8, the Crypto King's Fall. The rain drums a restless beat over San Francisco, California, its rhythm cloaking the city's glittering skyline. It's the late 2010s, and this tech mecca hums with ambition. Startups blooming, coders chasing fortunes, the air electric with dreams of revolution. But beneath the neon glow of Silicon Valley, a darker current flows, one fueled by greed and deception. At its heart is Jonathan Jace Whitmore, a 30-something prodigy whose charisma masks a chilling lie. As CEO of Nexa Capital, he promises to reshape finance with a cryptocurrency that dazzles the world, but Jace's empire is a house of cards, and its collapse will ruin thousands, leaving a trail of betrayal that echoes far beyond the Bay. This is the story of a Ponzi scheme, a global manhunt, and a man who gambled with billions and lost. Welcome to the shadows of the crypto dream, where the rain can't drown the screams of the defrauded. Jace Whitmore was a name that sparkled in San Francisco's tech scene. Born in a wealthy suburb, he was a golden boy, sharp, charming, with a mind that sliced through complexity like a blade. By 22, he had graduated MIT with degrees in artificial intelligence and financial engineering, his future a blank check. He made his first million by 25, building an AI-driven trading bot that outsmarted Wall Street. But Jace wasn't content with mere wealth. He craved legacy, a name etched in history like Musk or Bezos. In 2017, as Bitcoin soared, he saw his chance. He founded Nexa Capital, a blockchain firm promising a decentralized utopia. Its crown jewel was the NX token, a cryptocurrency he claimed would power a new digital economy. Investors flocked, seduced by his vision and his smile. By 2019, Nexa had billions in funding, and Jace was a star, his face on magazine covers, his voice filling conference halls. But behind the gloss, a lie was festering. Jace's world was a stage, his charisma the script. He spoke of financial freedom, of a world where banks were obsolete, his words a siren call to dreamers and tycoons alike. Venture capitalists poured millions into Nexa, celebrities endorsed it, and small-time traders bet their savings, all believing in Jace's promise. The NX token's value soared, its growth a mirage of coded trades and hype. Jace lived like a king, mansions in Pacific Heights, private jets, a fleet of supercars, all funded by the very investors he charmed. His offices, a glass fortress in San Francisco's heart, buzzed with young coders and slick executives, none questioning the man at the helm. To the world, Nexa was a revolution. To Jace, it was a game, and he was winning. But revolutions built on lies don't last. Nexa's core was rotten, a Ponzi scheme dressed in blockchain jargon. The NX token had no real assets, no infrastructure, just a web of transactions where new investor funds paid fake returns to old ones. Jace and his inner circle siphoned millions into offshore accounts, their greed hidden by staged announcements and fake partnerships. The first cracks appeared in 2020, when auditors couldn't verify Nexa's assets. Whistleblowers, junior coders who'd seen the code's emptiness leaked documents, their warnings drowned by Jace's charisma. He reassured investors with slick videos promising breakthroughs while buying time to drain more funds, his life of luxury. Yachts, penthouses, art auctions continued. A middle finger to the truth. The scheme held until 2021 when the SEC launched a probe. An anonymous insider, a disgruntled executive, handed over emails proving Nexa's fraud. The NX token was a ghost, its value propped by lies. Jace, sensing the noose, didn't flinch. He withdrew hundreds of millions in Bitcoin and Ethereum, his escape plan ready. As the SEC closed in, he vanished, leaving Nexa's offices empty, its servers wiped. Investors woke to frozen accounts, their savings gone. The collapse was catastrophic, $8.5 billion, 0 cents lost, the largest crypto fraud in U.S. history. Small traders lost life savings. Retirees faced ruin, and hedge funds bled. San Francisco's tech utopia turned sour. Jason's name, a curse on every lip. The manhunt was global. The FBI, Interpol, and blockchain analysts chased Jace's digital footprints, their task a labyrinth of encrypted wallets and false identities. He was sighted in Dubai, then Serbia, always a step ahead, his fortune a shield. The crypto community, once his cheerleaders, branded him a traitor. Their forums buzzing with rage. Jace, the ghost, taunted them, moving funds through mixers like Tornado Cash, his transactions a middle finger to justice. In San Francisco, victims rallied of class action lawsuits, protests outside Nexa's empty offices. But without Jace, it was hollow. The world watched, breathless. as one man outran the law. His arrogance, a spark. Jace's downfall began with a mistake. In August 2022, a $500 0 Bitcoin transfer from a dormant wallet linked to him pinged in Buenos Aires, Argentina. It was small, careless, a crack in his armor. The FBI's Operation Shadow Trace, a task force born to hunt him, pounced. Undercover agents infiltrated Argentina's elite, watching yacht clubs, private airports, and crypto meetups. The CCTV clip from a Buenos Aires airstrip caught him disguised but unmistakable boarding a chartered jet. The jet's destination was Sao Paulo, Brazil, and Interpol was ready. Brazilian police, tipped off, surrounded the airstrip as the plane landed. Officers stormed it, weapons drawn, and there, in an expensive suit, was Jace Whitmore, the crypto king, unshackled but cornered, raised his hands, his smirk gone. The chase was over. San Francisco exhaled, but the reckoning was just beginning. Jace's extradition to the U.S. in October 2022 was a media circus. His face, once a symbol of innovation, now a mask of defeat. Shackled, he faced a federal courthouse charged with wire fraud, securities fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. The evidence was crushing. Thousands of emails, fraudulent contracts, and testimonies from Nexa's former coders who turned on him. Jace's defense, a team of high-powered attorneys paid with his hidden fortune, argued the crypto laws were vague, his actions a gray area. They painted him as a visionary caught in a market crash, not a fraudster. But the prosecution was relentless, detailing how he'd knowingly deceived. His offshore accounts, a map of betrayal. The trial in New York City by 2023 was a spectacle. Victims testified, their stories a litany of lost families bankrupted, dreams shattered, lives upended. A retiree who'd lost his pension wept. A single mother who'd bet her savings cursed Jace's name. Former employees, once loyal, exposed the lie. Nexa's blockchain was a facade. Its profits a cycle of theft. The jury saw through Jace's charm, his defense crumbling under the weight of truth. After 2 weeks of deliberation, the verdict came on October 17, 2023. Guilty on all counts. The judge, unmoved by Jace's plea, sentenced him to 245 years, a record for financial crime. Jace, once untouchable, sat silent, his empire at. The aftermath was a wound that wouldn't heal. Only $3,200,000,000, 0 cents of the $8,500,000,000, 0 cents was recovered. The rest lost in untraceable wallets. Forensic accountants chased leads, Hong Kong, UAE, Monero coins, but Jace's fortune was a ghost. Anonymous Bitcoin transfers, still moving his money. Their identities a mystery. The FBI watched Jace's inner circle, but no one talked. The victims left with scraps. Rebuilt as best they could, their trust in crypto shattered. San Francisco's tech scene, once a beacon, dimmed, its promise tainted by Jace's greed. Jace in a maximum security cell faded from the headlines, but his shadow lingered. Books, documentaries, and podcasts dissected his rise and fall, painting him as both genius and villain. The crypto world changed. Stricter regulations, mandatory audits, a war on anonymity. Nexa's collapse was a cautionary tale, taught in finance schools, its scars a reminder of unchecked ambition. Jace, in rare interviews, claimed he'd meant to innovate, not destroy. But his words rang hollow. The missing billions, the lives he ruined, spoke louder. As the rain slows to a whisper, Jace's story clings like fog over the bay. He wasn't a killer, not a predator in the traditional sense, but his crime cut deeper, its victims numberless. He gambled with trust, with hope, and lost it all. San Francisco moves on, its startups rising, its coders dreaming anew. But somewhere in the blockchain's depths, Jace's fortune might still pulse, waiting for a new player to claim it. In a city where the rain falls and the future gleams, the past murmurs a warning. Ambition can blind, and the brightest stars often burn the fiercest. Who else in Silicon Valley's glow is building a lie, waiting for the rain to hide their fall? Case 9, the Terra collapse. The rain weaves a mournful curtain over Seoul, South Korea, its steady patter muffling the city's neon pulse. It's 2018, and Seoul buzzes with the fervor of a new era. Crypto fever, gripping the young, the ambitious, the dreamers chasing digital gold. Amid this frenzy, a man named Do Kwon rises. His vision as bold as the blockchain itself. At 27, he's a computer scientist turned prophet, promising to rewrite finance with Terraform Labs and its twin tokens, Terra USD and Luna. To the world, Kwon is a genius, his charisma a magnet for billions. But beneath the hype lies a lie so vast it will shatter lives across the globe, leaving a trail of ruin that echoes far beyond Seoul's skyscrapers. This is the story of a crypto empire, a catastrophic collapse, and a man who fled justice until the world caught up. Welcome to the shadows of the digital gold rush, where the rain can't wash away the betrayal. Do Kwon was a prodigy, born in South Korea's competitive crucible. Raised in Seoul, he excelled in math and code, his mind a labyrinth of logic and ambition. By his mid-20s, he'd studied at Stanford, worked in tech, and seen the crypto boom up close. Bitcoin's rise in 2017 lit a fire in him, not just for wealth, but for revolution. In 2018, he co-founded Terraform Labs, pitching a decentralized financial system to rival banks. Its heart was Terra USD, an algorithmic stablecoin pegged to the dollar, and Luna, its volatile sister token. Together, they promised stability and sky-high returns, a dream too perfect to question. Investors poured in. Venture capitalists, hedge funds, everyday traders. Seduced by Kwon's confidence in the promise of 20% yields. By 2022, Terraform's market cap hit $40 billion, 0 cents. And Kwon was a crypto king, his tweets shaping markets, his swagger silencing doubters. Kwon's world was a stage, his bravado the script. He called critics poor and stupid, his social media a battlefield where he mocked skeptics and hyped Terra's invincibility. Behind the scenes, Terraform's Anchor protocol, a lending platform, fueled the frenzy, offering returns that defied logic. Retail investors from Seoul to San Francisco bet their savings, lured by the stablecoin's promise of security. Kwon's team, a mix of coders and financiers, worked in a sleek Seoul office, their faith in him absolute. To the world, Terra was a miracle, an algorithm that held steady while Bitcoin swung wild. But miracles built on code are fragile. And Kwon's was a house of cards. Its foundation, a lie he knew too well. Terra's magic was an illusion. Unlike stablecoins backed by cash, Terra USD relied on an algorithm tied to Luna, burning or minting tokens to maintain its $1 0 cents peg. It worked as long as demand held, but confidence was its oxygen. Kwon knew the risks. Internal emails later showed he'd warn of a death spiral if faith faltered. But he downplayed them. His public bravado a mask. He manipulated markets, propping Terra's peg with secret buybacks, using investor funds to hide cracks. His team, aware of flaws, stayed silent, loyal, or complicit. By 2022, Terraform was a juggernaut, but its core was rotten. A Ponzi-like scheme where new deposits fueled fake stability. Kwon lived large, luxury apartments, global conferences, a fortune in crypto, while the truth festered. The collapse came like a storm. In May 2022, large withdrawals from Anchor, led by whale investors, strained Terra's algorithm. The peg slipped, panic spread, and retail traders cashed out. Luna's value, meant to stabilize Terra, plummeted from $119 0 cents to pennies in days, wiping out $40 billion 0 cents. Investors watched helplessly, savings vanished, homes lost, businesses shuttered. A Seoul student who'd bet his tuition was penniless, a U.S. retiree who trusted Kwon's tweets faced eviction. The crash wasn't just financial, it was personal, a betrayal that cut deep. Kwon, once a hero, became a villain, his silence deafening as Terraform's offices emptied, its servers dark. The world turned on Kwon. Regulators in South Korea, the U.S., and Singapore launched probes, labeling Terra and Luna unregistered securities. The SEC accused Kwon of fraud, citing internal messages. Where he admitted vulnerabilities, investors filed lawsuits, their anger a tidal wave. Kwon, sensing the noose, fled. He left Seoul in 2022, his passport revoked, his location a mystery. Rumors placed him in Dubai, Serbia, Montenegro. His wealth, millions in crypto. His shield, Interpol issued a red notice, their manhunt global. But Kwon was a ghost, his digital savvy outpacing the law. Social media burned with rage, victims cursing his name, their ex-posts a chorus of loss. Seoul, the city that birthed him, felt the sting deepest, its crypto dreams tarnished. Kwan's freedom ended in March 2023 in Montenegro. He was caught at an airport trying to board a private jet with fake documents, his beard and glasses a flimsy disguise. Montenegrin police, tipped by Interpol, arrested him, charging him with forgery. The U.S. and South Korea demanded extradition, their legal battle a tug-of-war. Kwan, in a Podgorica cell, maintained his innocence, claiming Terra's collapse was a market fluke, not fraud. But evidence mounted. Emails, buyback records, whistleblower accounts from Terraform coders who'd fled. Montenegro, after months of wrangling, extradited him to the U.S. In December 2024, his arrival in New York, a media storm. Shackled, he faced a federal courthouse, charged with securities fraud, wire fraud, commodities fraud, and conspiracy. The crypto king was dethroned, but his fight was far from over. The trial in early 2025 was a global spectacle, its New York courtroom packed with reporters, victims, and crypto watchers. Prosecutors laid out a damning case. Kwan had knowingly misled investors, his algorithm a ticking bomb. Internal emails showed he'd laughed off critics, calling Terra's pegs smoke and mirrors. Bank records revealed he'd withdrawn millions before the crash, funneling them to offshore wallets. The victims testified, their stories a litany of ruin. A sole mother who'd lost her home, a London trader who'd bet his kid's future. A whistleblower, a former Terraform executive, was the knockout blow. Protected by anonymity, he exposed Kwan's secret buybacks, using investor funds to fake stability. Kwan's withdrawals, timed perfectly, proved he'd planned to profit from the fall. Kwan's defense, a team of elite lawyers, fought hard. They painted him as a visionary blindsided by market forces. Arguing crypto's lack of regulation made his actions legal gray. Terra's collapse, they claimed, was a crash like 2008, not fraud. They likened Kwan to bankers who'd walked free, his ambition reckless but not criminal. But the evidence was a mountain. Emails, records, the whistleblower's testimony. Kwan took the stand, his arrogance dimmed but not gone, insisting he'd believed in Terra. His voice cracked when pressed on the withdrawals, his answers vague. The jury saw through him, their verdict swift, guilty on all major counts. On March 12, 2025, the judge sentenced him to 40 years, the longest for a crypto fraud. His empire, a memory. The aftermath was a scar on the crypto world. Terraform and Kwan paid $4.5 billion, 0 cents in a civil settlement, a fraction of the $40 billion. 0 cents lost. A $2.3 billion 0 cents fund compensated victims, but for many it was too little too late. Seoul's crypto scene, once vibrant, cooled. Its trust eroded. Global regulators cracked down. New stablecoin rules in the U.S. The EU's MiCA laws, bans on algorithmic coins like Terra. Victims rebuilt, some finding solace in advocacy, others in silence. Kwan in a federal prison grew quiet, his bravado gone. In a 2027 interview, he claimed he'd meant to innovate, not destroy, but walked away. When pressed on the truth, his silence a final betrayal. Seoul moved on, its skyline gleaming, but Terra's shadow lingered. Books, documentaries, and X-threads dissected Kwan's rise and fall. His name, a cautionary tale in finance schools. The missing millions, hidden in decentralized wallets, fueled speculation. Were accomplices still moving his funds? The SEC chased leads, but the blockchain's anonymity was a fortress. Crypto, once a wild frontier, became a regulated maze, its innocence lost. Kwan's story wasn't one of violence, but its impact was no less brutal. Its victims countless, their dreams dust. As the rain fades to a sigh, Kwan's story clings like damp air over Seoul. He wasn't a killer, not a predator in the flesh, but his lie cut deeper, its wounds invisible but raw. He gambled with hope, with trust, and lost it all. Seoul's coders dream anew, its markets hum, but somewhere in the blockchain's depths, Kwan's fortune might still pulse, waiting for a new hand to claim it. In a city where the rain falls and the future glows, the past whispers a truth. Ambition can blind, and the brightest visions often hide the darkest lies. Who else in Seoul's neon heart is coding a dream that will crumble, waiting for the rain to mask their fall? Case 10, the Lazarus Heist. The rain hammers down on San Francisco, California, a relentless roar cloaking the city's tech-driven pulse. It's 2026, and this hub of innovation hums with restless energy. Coders in glass towers, startups chasing unicorns. The blockchain's promise still bright despite past betrayals. But beneath the surface, a shadow moves, silent and surgical. striking at the heart of this digital empire. This isn't the work of a lone hustler or a greedy CEO. This is the Lazarus Group, a North Korean cyber syndicate, their invisible hands reaching across borders to pull off the largest crypto heist in history. Their target, VaultNet, a San Francisco exchange hailed as impenetrable. This is the story of a $4,200,000,000 zero-cent theft, a digital war in a world left scrambling in the wake of a faceless enemy. Welcome to the shadows of the cyber frontier, where the rain can drown the echo of a breach. The Lazarus Group was a ghost in the machine, a name whispered in cybersecurity circles with dread. Linked to North Korea's Reconnaissance General Bureau, they were state-backed hackers, their motives a mix of profit and geopolitics. Since the early 2010s, they'd hit banks, studios, and crypto platforms, their attacks funding Pyongyang's regime, sanctions be damned. The 2014 Sony hack, the 2016 Bangladesh bank heist, and a string of ransomware strikes bore their mark. By 2026, Lazarus was a hydra. Their coders armed with AI, quantum tools, and a knack for exploiting human error. They operated in the dark web's depths, their identities a void, their reach global. San Francisco, with its crypto wealth, was a prize they couldn't resist. VaultNet was their target. A rising star in the crypto world, launched in 2023, it was a San Francisco-based exchange. Its servers fortified with military-grade encryption, its reputation built on security. Traders trusted VaultNet with billions. Bitcoin, Ethereum, stablecoins, drawn by its unhackable claim. Its CEO, Rachel Lynn, was a former NSA cryptographer, her team a blend of Silicon Valley and Pentagon talent. VaultNet's hot wallets holding $4,200,000,000, 0 cents for daily trades, were its crown jewel, protected by multi-factor authentication and air-gapped systems. To the world, it was a fortress. To Lazarus, it was a challenge, and they'd been probing its walls for months. The heist began in silence, its roots tracing to late 2025. Lazarus, patient and precise, targeted VaultNet's weakest link, people. They fished a junior developer, a 24-year-old named Ethan Cole, with a fake job offer email. The link, clicked in a moment of distraction, installed malware, giving Lazarus a foothold from there. They moved laterally, mapping VaultNet's network, their tracks hidden by stolen credentials. They exploited a flaw in the Hot Wallets API, a coding oversight missed in audits. For weeks, they watched, waiting for the perfect moment. Their plan wasn't just theft, it was chaos. A strike to rattle the West's financial core. The $4,200,000,000, 0 cents, was the prize. But the fear was the legacy. The attack struck on March 3rd, 2026 at 2:17 a.m. PST when San Francisco slept and the rain poured. Lazarus activated their code, siphoning $4,200,000,000, 0 cents from VaultNet's hot wallets in minutes. Bitcoin, Ethereum, and USDC flowed to anonymous wallets. Then through mixers like Tornado Cash, their path a maze of blockchain obfuscation. VaultNet's alarms triggered, but it was too late. The funds were gone, the breach a surgical wound. By dawn, the exchange froze trading, its platform offline, its users locked out. The news hit like a bomb. The unhackable VaultNet was gutted. Its $4,200,000,000, 0 cents loss, a record that dwarfed past crypto heists. Bitcoin crashed 22%, Ethereum 18%, the market hemorrhaging $300 billion, 0 cents in hours. San Francisco woke to panic. Traders flooded X, their posts a mix of rage and despair. Savings gone, portfolios erased. A Seattle coder who'd stored his startup's funds on VaultNet was bankrupt. A London retiree who diversified into crypto faced ruin. Rachel Lynn, pale on live TV, vowed to investigate, but her fortress was breached, her reputation ash. The FBI, CISA, and global agencies launched a response, dubbing it Operation Shadow Trade. They traced fragments of the stolen funds wallets in Hong Kong, servers in Russia, but Lazarus's mixers were a black hole. The group silent, left no ransom note, no taunt. Their victory in the blockchain's ledger. While the Lazarus Group's brilliance was their invisibility. Operating from North Korea, shielded by state firewalls, they used VPNs, spoofed IPs, and AI-driven obfuscation. Their malware, dubbed Reaper, was a masterpiece, rewriting itself to evade detection. Blockchain analysts hired by VaultNet tracked the stolen coins, but mixers fragmented them into thousands of wallets, some dormant, others bouncing through DeFi protocols. The U.S. Treasury sanctioned Tornado Cash, but the funds were already scattered, converted to Monero, a privacy coin. Lazarus wasn't just stealing, they were waging war. Their heist, a middle finger to the West's digital dreams. The investigation was a race against time. The FBI's cyber division, with Interpol and South Korea's NIS, hunted Lazarus's digital footprints. A breakthrough came in April 2026, when a wallet linked to the heist moved $10 million, 0 cents, to a Singapore exchange. The transaction, sloppy for Lazarus, led to a low-level operative, a Chinese national named Li Wei, arrested in Bangkok. Wei, a money launderer, gave up fragments, server locations in Vladivostok, a contact in Pyongyang, but not enough to crack Lazarus's core. The U.S. retaliated with counter-hacks targeting North Korean servers, their payloads disrupting Lazarus's infrastructure. But the group adapted, their AI tools rewriting code faster than analysts could track. The heist impact was seismic. VaultNet declared bankruptcy, its users left with pennies via liquidation. Rachel Lynn resigned, her career shattered, her ex-posts apologizing to victims drowned by their fury. The crypto market, already battered, faced a reckoning. New U.S. laws mandated cold wallet storage, killing hot wallet platforms. Globally, regulators tightened screws. Japan banned privacy coins. The EU flagged DeFi as a laundering risk. Victims from Seoul to Sao Paulo rebuilt, some suing VaultNet, others retreating from crypto entirely. A San Francisco barista who'd lost $50,000, 0 cents, joined a class action. Her story, one of thousands. Operation Shadow Trace dug deeper, uncovering Lazarus's evolution. By 2026, they'd mastered quantum cryptography, their hacks bypassing traditional defenses. A leaked NSA report posted on X in 2027 revealed Lazarus's use of stolen supercomputers, their processing power cracking encryption at unprecedented speed. The group wasn't just coders, they were a state weapon. Their heists funding North Korea's nukes, their silence a taunt, arrests of peripheral players, launderers in Malaysia, coders in Ukraine, did little. The core in Pyongyang was untouchable, their servers behind a digital iron curtain. San Francisco bore the scar. VaultNet's collapse fueled distrust, its empty offices a ghost in the Mission District. The city's crypto scene, once a beacon, dimmed, its coders wary of the next breach. Blockchain conferences, once packed, shrank, their panels debating security over hype. Victims formed support groups, their X-threads, a mix of grief and defiance. A few recovered scraps by insurance, but the $4.2 billion, 0 cents, was gone, its bulk in Lazarus's hands. Analysts speculated the funds bought missiles, satellites, a regime survival. The heist wasn't just theft, it was a geopolitical flex, a reminder of North Korea's reach. The fallout reshaped the world. In 2027, the U.S. passed the Crypto Transparency Act, forcing exchanges to verify wallets and limit anonymity. Globally, G20 nations aligned their rules, choking DeFi's Wild West. Lazarus, undeterred, struck again. Smaller heists in 2028, their signature, Reaper, malware, evolving. The FBI's Shadow Trace never closed, its agents chasing ghosts in the blockchain. A 2029 report hinted at a Lazarus defector. Their testimony buried for security, but no major arrests followed. The stolen $4.2 billion, 0 cents, fragmented across thousands of wallets, remained a taunt, its recovery a pipe dream. As the rain softens to a murmur, the Lazarus heist lingers, a chill in San Francisco's fog. This wasn't a crime of passion or greed, it was war, coded and cold. Its victims faceless, but countless. VaultNet's fall was a warning, its breach a mirror to a world too trusting of digital walls. San Francisco rebuilds, its coders coding, its startups rising, but the blockchain's promise is tarnished. Somewhere, in Pyongyang's shadows, Lazarus plans, their keyboards clicking, their next target unknown. In a city where the rain falls and the future gleams, the past whispers a truth. The enemy isn't always flesh. Sometimes it's a line of code, a silent strike, waiting for the rain to mask its echo. Who's next in the digital dark when the fortress falls again? Case 11, the betrayal of Sydney. The rain falls in a steady whisper over Sydney, Australia, its soft cadence weaving through the city's gleaming towers and sunlit harbors. It's the late 2010s, and Sydney pulses with ambition. Finance giants cutting deals, yachts dotting the skyline, the air thick with the promise of wealth. But beneath this polished surface, in the boardrooms and back offices, a quieter crime takes root, one that thrives on trust and shatters it without a sound. At its heart is Matthew Caldwell, a 52-year-old investment banker whose charm is as sharp as his suits. To the world, he's a titan of Caldwell Capital, a hedge fund promising riches. To his victims, he's a thief. His smile a mask for a $3.7 billion 0 cents Ponzi scheme. This is the story of greed, deception, and a city left to pick up the pieces when the dream collapsed. Welcome to the shadows of Sydney's golden age, where the rain can't wash away the sting of betrayal. Matthew Caldwell was a name that carried weight. Born in Sydney's affluent North Shore, he was bred for success. Private schools, Oxford degree, a fast track to Macquarie Bank by 25. His career was a meteoric rise, his deals legendary, his charisma a key that unlocked every door. By 2000, he'd founded Caldwell Capital, a hedge fund pitched as a safe haven for wealth. He promised 22% annual returns. His secret, a proprietary trading algorithm he claimed outsmarted markets. Sydney's elite, doctors, CEOs, retirees flocked to him, their millions joined by institutions and small investors chasing the dream. By 2015, Caldwell managed $3.7 billion 0 cents. His harborside mansion and charity galas a testament to his reign. To clients, he was a genius. To those who looked closer, he was a lie waiting to unravel. Caldwell's world was a carefully crafted illusion. He wined and dined clients at Sydney's finest restaurants, his presentations dazzling with charts and jargon. His algorithm, he said, used AI to predict market swings, a black box only he understood. Investors, from widows to pension funds, trusted him, their statements showing steady gains. Caldwell's life was a performance. Rolex watches, private jets, a yacht named Prospera, all funded by the very money he swore to grow. His staff, a loyal cadre of analysts and marketers, believed in him, their bonuses tied to his success. Sydney, right in a global bull market, saw Caldwell as its golden sun, his fund a beacon in a city obsessed with wealth. But beacons built on lies flicker out. Caldwell Capital was a Ponzi scheme, its returns a mirage. There was no algorithm, no AI, just new investor funds paying fake profits to old ones. Caldwell siphoned millions into offshore accounts. His lifestyle, a drain on the pool. He hid the truth with forged statements, fake audits, and a network of shell companies in the Caymans. His chief accountant, Sarah Leung, a quiet genius, suspected cracks but stayed silent, her loyalty bought with a six-figure salary. By 2015, economic slowdown strained the scheme. New investors slowed, withdrawals rose, and Caldwell's juggling act faltered. He doubled down, promising higher returns, his charm a shield against doubt. The first tremors came in 2017 when a Sydney retiree, David Walsh, demanded his $2 million 0 cents investment back. Caldwell stalled, citing market volatility, but Walsh, a former auditor, dug deeper. He found discrepancies. Trades that didn't match market data, returns too consistent for reality. Walsh tipped the Australian Securities and Investments Commission, ASAC. His evidence a spark. ASIC, wary of high-profile frauds, launched a probe, their auditors combing Caldwell's books. Caldwell, sensing heat, leaned on his network, politicians, bankers, even a media mogul, to deflect scrutiny. He threw lavish parties, donated to charities, his public face untarnished. But the noose was tightening, and he knew it. The unraveling began with a whistleblower. In 2018, Sarah Leung, haunted by guilt, contacted ASIC anonymously. She'd seen the shell companies, the fake trades, the offshore transfers, $1.2 billion 0 cents alone to a Dubai account. Her evidence, a USB drive of internal emails and ledgers, was dynamite. One email from Caldwell read, "Keep the client smiling, the numbers don't matter." ASIC raided Caldwell Capital's circular quay office, seizing servers and freezing accounts. The news broke like a storm. Caldwell's fund was a fraud. It's $3,700,000,000, 0 cents a house of cards. Investors panicked, their calls unanswered, their wealth gone, pensions, futures gone. Sydney's elite, once Caldwell's cheerleaders, reeled, their trust in the city's sheen shattered. Caldwell didn't run. His arrogance, or perhaps his delusion, kept him in Sydney, his mansion a fortress as ASIC closed in. He claimed innocence, blaming rogue employees and market chaos. His lawyers, a top-tier firm, spun a narrative of a visionary betrayed by underlings, but the evidence was crushing. Leung's files, bank records, client testimonies. On July 19, 2019, police arrested him at his mansion, paparazzi swarming as he was led away, his tie askew, his charm extinct. Sydney watched, breathless, as their golden sun fell, his name a synonym for betrayal. The investigation peeled back layers of deceit. Caldwell had started small, using real trades to build trust. But by 2005, the Ponzi scheme took over, its scale staggering. He'd paid early investors with later deposits. His fake statement's a masterpiece of forgery. His offshore accounts held $800 million, 0 cents. The rest spent on his lifestyle or lost to fake trades. Leung, granted immunity, testified, her voice steady as she detailed the fraud. Other employees, unaware of the scam, were stunned, their careers tainted. ASIC traced Caldwell's network, accountants, lawyers, even a complicit auditor who faced charges. The ripple effect was brutal. Families bankrupted, charities defunded, a hospital wing canceled for lack of Caldwell's promised donation. Sydney's victims were legion. A Bondi doctor who'd invested her practice's savings faced foreclosure. A retired couple in Manly lost their home, their dignity stripped. Small investors, lured by Caldwell's ads in local papers, were hit hardest. Teachers, tradesmen, single parents who trusted his name. Ex-posts from victims flooded timelines, their stories a chorus of loss. He took my kid's future. I believed his lies. Support groups formed, their meetings a mix of grief and rage. Some sued, others retreated, their faith in finance broken. Sydney's financial district, once a symbol of prosperity, felt cursed, its towers hiding other secrets waiting to spill. Caldwell's trial in 2020 was a media circus. Sydney Supreme Court packed with reporters and victims. Prosecutors laid out a meticulous case. 17 counts of fraud, money laundering, and false accounting. Leung's testimony was the cornerstone, her ledgers mapping Caldwell's theft. Victims spoke, their voices raw. A nurse who'd lost her pension, a widower whose savings vanished. Caldwell's defense argued he'd meant to recover losses. His algorithm, a failed experiment, not a scam. They painted him as a victim of market swings, his intent pure. But the emails, the offshore millions, the forged audits, truth crushed fiction. Caldwell, polished but pale, took the stand, his charm flat, his excuses hollow. The jury deliberated briefly, the verdict unanimous, guilty on all counts. On November 12, 2020, the judge sentenced him to 25 years, his wealth seized, his legacy ash. The aftermath was a wound Sydney couldn't close. Of the $3,700,000,000, 0 cents, only $1,100,000,000, 0 cents, was recovered, the rest spent or hidden. Victims received partial payouts, but for many it was a fraction of their loss. Caldwell's mansion was sold, his yacht auctioned, his accounts drained, but it wasn't enough. ASIC tightened regulations mandating transparency for hedge funds, a belated shield against future Caldwell. Sydney's elite chastened, grew wary, their trust in finance giants frayed. Caldwell, in a maximum security cell, faded from view, his interviews rare, his remorse absent. A 2023 prison letter, leaked on X, claimed he'd been misunderstood, sparking outrage from victims. Sydney moved on, its harbor sparkling, but Caldwell's shadow lingered. Documentaries and podcasts dissected his fraud, his name a cautionary tale in finance schools. The missing billions fueled speculation. Were they stashed in untraceable crypto, held by accomplices? ASIC chased leads, but the trail went cold. Victims rebuilt, some finding purpose in advocacy, others in silence. The city's financial heart, once invincible, beat softer. Its confidence cracked. Caldwell wasn't a killer, but his crime cut deep. Its scars carried by thousands who'd believed his promise. As the rain fades to a sigh, Caldwell's story clings like mist over Sydney's skyline. He wasn't a predator in the flesh, not a creature of violence, but his betrayal was a blade, its wounds silent but searing. He gambled with trust, with dreams, and lost it all. Sydney shines, its markets humming, its wealth rising, but somewhere, in the ledger's depths, another lie might fester, waiting for a new face to sell it. In a city where the rain falls and the future gleams, the past whispers a truth, greed blinds, and the smoothest smiles hide the sharpest knives. Who else in Sydney's golden glow is weaving a dream that will shatter, waiting for the rain to mask their fall? The rain slows now, a fading whisper over cities and shadows, its rhythm a reminder of the stories we've uncovered. From the quiet terror of Wakefield to the digital devastation of San Francisco, from Melbourne's blood-soaked docks to Sydney's gilded lies, these 11 cases reveal a truth as old as time. Evil wears many faces. It's the neighbor you nod to, the dreamer you cheer, the smile you trust. These tales of predators, thieves, and betrayers slinger like ghosts. Their echoes a warning in the night. Shadows of the past leaves you here in the stillness where the rain's soft fall carries questions no one can answer. How many others walk among us? Their secrets buried, their plans ticking like bombs. As you drift asleep, the black screen a canvas for your thoughts. Let these stories be a lantern in the dark. Evil may hide, but courage, Eleanor's, Lucia's, the countless who survived, burns brighter. The rain will fall again, and so will we, unearthing the truths that refuse to stay buried. Until then, rest, but listen. The shadows are never silent. What will they whisper next?